Top of the morning, ladies. My name is Chaz, and welcome to the custom card review. And in this custom card review special, I will go over the Void Breaker archetype. The Void Breaker is a archetype that rivals the Seal of Alcalcos cards. So, they would be broken. So, and there is one more. It's called Research. I call it that because, yeah. So, let's begin. With the monsters, Void Breaker Nutses. It's a dark, level 4 Fiend effect monster where when this card is normal summon or special summon, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of this turn. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish it to negate the effects of one card your opponent controls until the end of your next turn, no matter if it's spell speed 4. You can only use this card's effects for once per turn. So, I added the no matter if it is spell speed 4. Because Seal of Alcalcos from the anime and in real life is basically classified as spell speed 4. So, yeah, so this is a counter that. So let's go over here. Let's do this one. Void Breaker Flickering of Hope. It's a light level 3 fairy effect monster, side by side with the Fiend. If you control a Void Breaker monster on the field except this card, you can special summon this card from your hand. When this card is sent to the graveyard, you can return one banished monster to the owner's, or return one banished monster to its owner's graveyard or hand. If it does, your opponent must send one card that mentions of Seal of Alcalcos in its card text or name from their deck or hand to the graveyard. So basically what it means is basically it's because this is the rivals of the Seal of Alcalcos archetype. This card can be basically, you can return a banished monster to the hand, and then if you do, then this card, or your opponent must send one card from that mentioned Seal of Alcalcos in its hand, or card text, or name. So basically, your opponent has a Seal of Alcalcos, but they would not have to use it. Now, the spells, there's 3 spells. So, I can't even say it. Ixol. Banish one monster from your opponent's graveyard, and if you do, return one monster they control to their hand. If you control a Void Breaker monster, you can banish one monster on the field instead. You can only use you can only activate this effect for once per turn. So this card can basically banish a card from your opponent's graveyard, and to return one card that they can, or basically, yeah. Then we got the Abyss Rift. All monster. It's a field spell for the archetype. All monsters your opponent controls loses 500 attack and defense for each Void Breaker monster you control. Once per turn, you can send one Void Breaker monster from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard. To destroy one monster your opponent controls, or destroy one monster your opponent controls, and if this card is sent to the graveyard by card effects, you can shuffle one Void Breaker from your graveyard into your deck. Negate all card effects from your opponent's field and hand. And so, yeah. You can only activate this card's effects for once per turn. So, yeah, yeah. And then that was 1, 2, here's a 3. Cup of the Flames. It's basically it's similar to Coin of, or Cup of Fate or some. Give me a minute to find this. Yu-Gi-Oh! Cup of Ace. Yes, that was it. So, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Cup of Ace is basically... I'm going to find a better picture. Where it's similar to Pot of Greed, but it allows, when you toss a coin, it basically either lands on heads or lands on tails. You can draw 2 cards. But this one is toss a coin and apply this effect. So basically, heads, draw 2 cards for each Void Breaker monster or monsters on the field. Tails, your opponent draws 2 cards for each monster on the field. Until the end of your opponent's next turn, all effects of defense resistant monsters are negated. So basically it has 3 effects, basically. First effect is basically you draw 2 cards, like if you had 5 Void Breaker monsters on the field, then, and you can basically draw 10 cards. And then if your opponent, for your opponent, draws 10 cards. Hi.
You disappeared.
Alright, hold on. So, yeah. So now we're on to the traps. So we did monsters, and sorry for that interruption. So, we did monsters, spells, now we're on to trap cards. So let's do the Final Judgment. When your opponent activates a card or effect, well, you control a Void Breaker monster, you can negate that activation, and if you do, destroy that card. You can banish this card from your graveyard. For the rest of the turn, your opponent can activate monster effects. So basically it cancels out your opponent's if they had like feather dust and you have a monster, you activate this card, your opponent can't do nothing. Hey, sorry for that interruption. And so, yes. Now, we're on to Soul of the Deep Truth. This this trap card is, let's read over its effects. So, if your opponent declares an attack on a void monster, you can toss a coin and then activate one of these following effects for once per turn. Heads, negate that attack and then return it to the owner's deck. Tails, inflict damage to the controller's life points instead. So what it means is basically your opponent that controls owns their monster is basically takes damage instead. So if your opponent if this card is sent to the graveyard by card effects, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Both players lose 1,000 life points. So, yeah. So that was... So, let's see how many. 1, 2... Now we're on to the trap card that is not related to this archetype, but the... Yeah, I just wanted to throw it in here to explain it. So, study of the research. So this archetype, research archetype, or resurgence archetype is basically focuses more on like negation and researching on opponent's plays stuff. So this card is custom made by using 2 real life cards. I'll explain it you'll see it when I do it. Activate this card by paying 1,000 life points. Negate all the effects of all cards on your opponent's field. But their effects still be activated. Once per turn, quick effect, you can target one monster from your graveyard and return it to your hand. And if you do, inflict 500 damage to your opponent's life points. So this card is a fusion of 2 other unrelated cards. First effect basically is Skill Drain or Mystic Minds, but for like your opponent. So your opponent can still activate, but it's negated. So yeah. And the single one, I forgot the other single one, so that's why. So, yeah. If you guys want me to do basically another archetype, let me know in the comments below and I'll do it. So, yeah. Plus, let me explain what this archetype, the one that the Void Breaker does. So it basically is a counterbalance to to basically Seal of Alcalcos. Where Seal of Alcalcos is super strong, but you need something to battle, counteracts it. As the cards like this one and the field spell would have been activate this, my opponent lose 500. and stuff like this would allow your opponent to basically to get rid of a lot of cards that have, like, if I was dueling against Florentine Yu-Gi-Oh, we need to, it's been a long time since I talked to him, so that's why I'm like, if you're watching this, look me up on Dueling Book and we'll duel, okay? So, now, with that out of the way, please leave a like, share, subscribe. Peace.